Craig, and welcome to another episode of Football Kit Memories. Today I'm joined by Josh Warwick, one of the co-founders of popular shirt retailer Colt Kits. During our chat, Josh talks to me about his business, his desire to do something different, and I get his thoughts on the ever-rising prices in the vintage kits market. During the show, I asked Josh to pick out 3 of his favourite football shirts and tell me a little bit about what they mean to him. There's Roger Milla's Cameroon home at Italia 90, a winning Calcio classic for the Blucherati, and an Ipswich away shirt that Josh holds very dear. You can listen to this and other episodes of Football Kit Memories on all major audio platforms including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please do subscribe, share, and above all, enjoy the podcast. Okay, so today on the podcast, I'm joined by Josh Warwick, who's one of the co-founders of Colt Kits. How you doing, Josh?
Yeah, very well. Thank you very well. Very good to be here.
Mate, really excited to have a chat, actually. So tell me a little bit about what you do at Colt Kits.
There was 3 of us that founded the business a few years ago. I can't actually remember now, but there was 3 of us who founded it, and we were all massive, obviously, football shirt fans and sort of collectors as well. We just thought we should sort of put our collective heads together and come up with a passion project, really, that has sort of grown and developed over the last few years, particularly over the last couple of years, actually. Yeah, that's it really, and we just love football shirts. A bit like I think I was talking about this the other day, and we really, it sounds a bit cliche, but we did genuinely try and set out to kind of create something that we would enjoy ourselves as sort of football fans and football shirt fans as well. So hopefully that kind of shines through on the website and how we sort of present ourselves on social and elsewhere.
Right. So the main goal of the business, obviously, it's retail, right? So you're selling kind of vintage shirts, but you guys do new shirts as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, we started out very much as a kind of vintage shirt seller, but yeah, we do some more kind of modern stuff as well too now, which is I mean, the kind of market has just gone out of control for the last few years. I think with football becoming really, really popular, and the kind of sort of football fashion, or the trend for people who perhaps not really interested in football actually wearing football shirts, all of that's kind of added to this huge interest in football shirts, and it's driven the prices up. So one of our kind of key focuses really for the last 2 or 3 years has been to try and develop quite a significant clearance section, so that we can, we still stock the kind of vintage stuff from 20 or 30 years ago, but the fact is the prices on those are really high because they cost us a lot to buy in the first place. So we do try and cater for everyone so people can start their collections without having to kind of break the bank to do it.
Yeah, that's really good. And how, obviously without going into business secrets, how does that kind of stuff work? Do you make kind of deals with the manufacturers, or is it with more sort of wholesalers, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, a bit of both, really.
Right.
We have arrangements with some manufacturers and some wholesalers too. So yeah, it's a kind of a bit of both, really. In terms of the kind of more vintage stuff, that comes from just everywhere, from people selling their own collections to the kind of, we obviously have contacts around the world, but it's just, every once in a while you get somebody who just stumbles across like a kind of Parma shirt from 1994 in their attic they forgot they had, and they didn't realize actually it's worth something and might not be something they'll wear now. So that kind of we find those kind of things all over the place and all over the world as well, actually.
Where do you stand on the kind of, I mean, the pricing of football shirts gets a lot of criticism. I think it's a really interesting debate, and everybody seems to have a different kind of opinion on it. In terms of that rising price of vintage shirts and certain shirts, and specifically things like the Bruised Banana or the Holland 88 shirt seem to go for hundreds and hundreds of pounds. Where's your position on that? Where do you stand on that?
Well, I mean, I don't like it, and I don't like the fact that we have to charge certain prices for those kind of really prized vintage shirts on the website, because that isn't really what we set out to do in the first place. But the fact is, we are driven by market economics, and there's such a clamour for those shirts now that it costs us, as I said earlier, it costs us loads to kind of get hold of them, just to put them on the site. So I mean, it doesn't kind of sit that easy with us, because as I said, it's not what we set out to do in the first place. But yeah, I mean, some of the prices are just absolutely insane, and some of the prices that come to us with people trying to sell shirts to us, and we're just like, that's just madness. So yeah, it's a strange one, really. I think generally around the kind of interest in football shirts now, like I do like it. I like the fact that you see, kind of prominent people in the music industry and elsewhere, other kind of cultural figures who wear football shirts who perhaps don't really like football. But I guess there's a part of me, someone who's kind of grew up loving football and, always loving football shirts, that there's a part of me kind of does feel a bit possessive about it. And, and I guess that's kind of tied into this as well, because that sort of surge in interest from perhaps people who weren't otherwise interested in football shirts has pushed the price up a bit. And so those kind of the sort of collectors who've been doing it for years are sort of paying the price a bit for that, I guess. So, but that's what the market is like now. So there's not much we can do about it.
No, totally right. It's an interesting debate. So
Yeah.
you mentioned that there were 3 of you that co-founded the business, right?
Yeah.
In terms of like, what do you all do in the business? Is it all slightly different?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So Rob is the guy who basically coordinates our buying. So we have a kind of small team now who work for us, but Rob is oversees all of our buying basically. And then David, who's my brother-in-law, he is a graphic designer by trade. So he and his fiance actually, who also works for the business now as well, but who was also a graphic designer. They are responsible for our look and feel, if you like, the kind of nice stuff we do on. I think it's very nice, but
No, it's really great. I think it really makes you guys stand out, most definitely.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah, the stuff we do on social, particularly Instagram, the way we hopefully kind of sort of emphasize a shirt's kind of elegance or just the way it looks, really. So they're responsible for that. And then my kind of role is sort of a bit split across a few things, really, but essentially kind of, I guess, content particularly. I mean, I kind of do a bit of everything, but more of the kind of written content, because I used to be a journalist. In my previous incarnation, I was a journalist, so I've kind of got some kind of oversight of that, and we have our own podcast as well. So I'm the guy who does that too. So we have kind of quite differing sort of skill sets, I think, which is been good. It's been really useful, and it also helps we like each other, so that's quite good.
Always helps.
They're all right anyway.
So, like, what's next for the business? Like, where do you see it in 5 years' time?
Yeah, that's a really tough question to answer, actually, because we often sort of try to do a bit of like horizon scanning and try and work out kind of where the market's going and what we want to do. Obviously, we want to keep growing, but I don't know. I think there's some kind of quite interesting things that are sort of opportunities that are starting to present themselves to us now as we've got to a certain kind of size, I guess. And, our kind of following on social is quite good now as well. So that kind of opens a few doors. So there's a couple of projects that I really can't talk about at the moment because they're not quite over the line, but one of them involves some physical retail space, which will be brilliant.
Wow.
Not in the UK, but fingers crossed that one happens, and hopefully that'll be something we announce really in the next month or so. And then again, looking kind of overseas, there's some kind of quite big markets that we'd like to really kind of tap into a little bit and just make a bit more of. And so a few kind of projects that are bubbling under. I'm sorry, I'm being so kind of cryptic about it.
That's fine.
Apologies. It's so annoying when people do that, but but I mean, the big thing for us is just to keep growing, really. And this, obviously, there's the market's got bigger. There's so many people selling football shirts now as well. So many smaller sellers, which and we were absolutely once part of that kind of community. So we, good luck to everyone who's doing it. But it does makes it first of all harder to get hold of shirts, and it does push the price up. And
of course,
it's quite a crowded marketplace now. Whereas, 5 or 10 years ago, there was one big player and then like lots of kind of smaller fish. So, just to keep doing it, really. I think we've sort of turned a passion into a job for a few people. So, just want to keep doing that and keep trying to just try different things as well. You talked about like how we sort of present ourselves on social earlier, and that's like quite intrinsic to what we're trying to do, really, to try and be a bit creative. That sounds really pretentious, but to try and be a bit more creative and not just try and be a kind of, this isn't a criticism of anybody at all, but not just sell stuff all the time. That isn't,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we want to sell things because that kind of pays our bills and everything, but to actually do a bit more than that and kind of, talk about some of the things that are around football and tap into some of those stories and just have some fun along the way as well.
I think you can kind of definitely see that there is a love for what you guys do in the wider culture. So it isn't just kind of overtly selling. So I think that definitely kind of shines through, which is good, right?
That's good. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Because we don't want it to be just like that, because, if that was our sort of focus, then we would just try and, no criticism to Eminem or whatever, but, they have a sort of business model which is very clear, but it's absolutely the other end of the kind of spectrum of what we're trying to achieve. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, I've got one more question on cult kits and the business before we go into your 3 shirt picks.
Yeah.
If I was to ask you, obviously it's a crowded market like you talked about, what makes you guys different? What makes you guys stand out from other shirt retailers? Why go to cult kits?
Yes, that's a difficult question. I guess it's the stuff we've talked about already, really, that we do try to celebrate the shirts as much as we can. And I don't know, we always, when we designed the current website, our sort of one of the kind of sort of principles of what we were trying to do was to make a site where people could come and browse. And if you don't buy anything, that's okay. That's completely fine. But you'll kind of enjoy the process of kind of browsing through football shirts, and you'll feel like it's almost like a kind of, not curated, that sounds way over the top, but you'll feel like it's like just a nice kind of nice experience, nice nostalgic thing to do. Yeah. And you might buy something, you might not, but that's fine. So I think hopefully people who come to our website kind of think that, and the kind of stuff that we've been doing on social as well is like not trying to push people to buy stuff all the time. Right. It's also to try and talk about some of the other stories and things that we like, and also collaborate and or support other people that we like in the kind of in the space that we're in, I suppose. So like we were talking before we started the interview about Mundial, and obviously you spoke to Dan at Mundial, and we've known the guys at Mundial for quite a few years now, and collaborated on some kind of small bits and pieces, but they're a great bunch, and we always try to support the kind of things that they're doing. And there's lots of other people that we've kind of done that with as well. So hopefully, well, I guess we just want to be part of this kind of this sort of really nice football community, really. It's nice to be kind of part of that, because it's great to see the game. What am I trying to say here? There's lots of kind of negative connotations about modern football, but also there's loads of really positive things about the game at the moment. The kind of the resurgence, or not resurgence, actually, the kind of interest in women's football being one, and the kind of creative elements that are sort of connected with football at the moment as well. I think it's really positive, and it's really nice to see, and we definitely want to be a part of that.
So I've got a very kind of generic question that I always ask people on the podcast, and I guess it's slightly different for you. What do football shirts mean to you?
Oh, okay. What do football shirts mean to me? Do you know what? I'm a romantic at heart. I'm sentimental. I can't help it. And to me, it's about kind of nostalgia and just remembering a time when football was all there was in your life, and you just kind of like completely got caught up in the weirdness and stupidity of football, and I suppose that's what football shirts mean to me. When I see a shirt, I mean, so we have a podcast, and we spoke to James Brown, the guy who founded Loaded magazine, and I was talking to him about his favorite era of football shirts, and he was saying, like, I think like the late 70s, early 80s, when he was kind of quite young and just first kind of getting into football, and and it's the same. And he said it quite nicely, actually. He described it quite nicely, and that was that football, kind of your favorite era of football shirts, a bit like your favorite era of music, and it's kind of connected to a period in your life when you're first discovering it and you're first kind of falling in love with it. So to me, the 90s, like I love 90s football shirts. That's my favorite era by a mile. Like I love 80s too, but 90s just evokes so many memories. So
Yeah.
So football shirts to me mean kind of like childhood and just like really fond memories of loving football, really. So yeah, that's kind of yes, that's
I
I
really
know it's
love the
sentimental. I
music.
can't think of anything more kind of original and different than that, to be honest. It's that simple.
Yeah, I really like the music analogy. They're kind of like bands
Yeah,
that stay with you from your kind of younger days, and they might not objectively be that good, and there might be a shirt from the 90s that isn't necessarily that good either, but you
oh
love it
yeah,
because it was part of your childhood growing up.
exactly. It's all connected to memories. So yeah, I think that's what it is. And I think you're right. The music analogy is perfect.
Yeah. So let's go on to your first shirt. So you've picked out the Cameroon home shirt by Adidas that was used at Italia 90.
Yeah,
Let's give it a
yeah,
quick description. So it's kind of it's an Adidas template, right? I think a few other teams had it, like Yugoslavia had it, I want to say, and I
yeah,
think Spain might have had something similar. So
yeah.
it's a green shirt with a white V-neck. You've got the kind of yellow Indomitable Lion logo. You've got the old trefoil, and you've got kind of like a two-stripe and an undersleeve patch design on the sleeves, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
kind of strange, isn't it, with Adidas? Usually it's stripes all the way down.
yeah. It's a really weird shirt. Yeah. So actually, before I start, I had to pick. You asked me to pick 3 shirts here. This is a real struggle because it's weird. I should have my favorite shirt. I should know the answer to this question because I get asked it quite a lot. But I actually don't have a favorite shirt. So this was really hard. I just kind of picked. I had to think about this really rationally. This was like this wasn't like I mean, the reasons I picked these shirts are kind of sentimental, but I
Right.
actually I kind of created like a mental matrix of kind of categories to work out what to pick here. So these choices could change like next week. But anyway, that shirt, yeah, I just love it. You're right. It was a template. If even in 1990, so it's my first World Cup. That's one of the reasons I picked this shirt. Okay,
Right.
I was 9 years old. Obviously, a bit like as we were just talking about your music and football shirts from a certain era stay with you. Your first World Cup, I'm sure it's the same for everyone. Everyone remembers the first World Cup because you're just like, what the hell is this? This is
Yeah.
brilliant. And, particularly Italia 90 because England were pretty good, and first World Cup, you get to a semi-final, lose on penalties. That's not bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love Italia 90. I know it was a shit. Sorry, can I swear, by the way?
Yeah, of course you can.
All right,
Say
fine.
what you want.
I know it was a shit tournament. It was a terrible tournament, like loads of sendings offs. I think twice as many as they've been in Mexico. And I think Mexico had the highest number of sendings. Some weird stat like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like it was a horrible tournament.
Stats. I love it. He's done his research.
Done my research. There was hardly any goals, loads of quite a few penalty shootouts, I think. It was just an ugly tournament, really. But, I just remember that summer. I mean, obviously, it was a long time ago, and of course, I've romanticized the way that summer played out. But it was one of those classics where it just seemed to go on forever.
Yeah.
It was just like, it's just such a great tournament. I just love it so much. And but for me, England were great, Republic of Ireland were great.
Yeah.
Cameroon were the team that stood out because I don't even think I'd ever heard of Cameroon before the tournament started. And they were, I think, ridiculous outsiders to win the tournament, of course. But even to get as far as they did, but they were just great. And I remember seeing the first game around my mates when they beat Argentina in that epic football match. I mean, it was the GBH from Benjamin Massing on Caniggia, wasn't it? Claudio Caniggia at the end, which was just remains one of the great World Cup moments. But it was such a brilliant World Cup, and that game was amazing. The ridiculous goal that Oman Biek scored, I think it was, when Larry Pompido, was it, the keeper? Right. He just kind of shovels it into the corner there. It was brilliant. And then it was played at San Siro as well. And Napoli had just won the Scudetto, and obviously Maradona's playing for Argentina. So all of the kind of Italian fans in the ground were all giving Maradona shit. And then this team of like randomly put together, I think they were like playing in the French second division, a lot of them. Sort of just chucked together, and then they're wearing this kit, and this is the point I was trying to get to. Actually, I remember watching the game thinking that kit looks like a few years old. It doesn't look like it's just been released. You know what I mean? It's like thrown together, and it was weird because it was obviously green. I think the first choice was green shirt, red shorts, and then yellow socks. So it was like really really kind of different, and a two-tone shininess, and of course the greatest thing about it, which is the huge lion badge, felt badge, which is just massive, and I just love it. I absolutely love the shirt. I just think it just reminds me of a really sort of happy summer, and of sort of falling in love with football in the World Cup, and that team were just. They were kind of chaotic, weren't they? Because I think they won their first two group games, then got smashed in the third game against the Soviet Union.
Yeah, correct.
And and then got to the beat. Did they beat Colombia? Or was it Colombia or Romania? I can't remember in the second round. And then they played England. And interesting, just as an aside, I think the first lockdown, because there wasn't much football on, I remember the game was broadcast again. I can't remember if it was on BBC or ITV.
They did do all of these games, didn't they? It was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I rewatched it because I can remember the game. I remember the time my dad took me to the local pub in the village that we lived in. So we watched the game at the pub, and I remember it was so great. I was so happy. Anyway, I watched this game back, and Cameroon absolutely battered England for large parts of that game. And they had this kind of reputation, this sort of stereotypical reputation. I mean, they did kick Argentina off the pitch, but they were sort of big physical side. But actually, technically, they were a really good side as well. And they should have beaten England. They had so many chances, and England got lucky, really. And anyway, so that team just thrown together, and the kit was sort of thrown together, and it just worked. And it was just for me, they were the story of Italian 90s. So I had to pick that shirt.
Yeah, mate, it's a fantastic choice. There's that story as well. I read on Wikipedia that apparently Maradona not only wore shin pads, but he also wore calf pads. Again,
is that right?
Cameroon. Yeah, apparently
really,
so.
Really?
Yeah.
So they had a reputation before that game, presumably.
Yeah, and like Maradona could take a kick, right? So for him to kind of wear extra padding is pretty serious, I guess.
Yeah. There's also another. I was doing a bit of research on that game. On the Cameroon actually, and there's a great story about the goalkeeper, because the first choice keeper was someone called, I think he was called Jojo Bell, and I think he was quite a decent keeper. He played for Bordeaux, I think.
Right.
He was really good, but he'd had a falling out with the manager or something like that. Anyway, 5 hours before the game, the second choice keeper, Thomas, I think it's Ngolo, suddenly gets chosen to play. He's so nervous, like he's so scared the president or someone has to phone him up to tell him to play. And he has the game of his life. Anyway, there's a 12-year-old boy, Italian, watching. I don't think he's at the game, but he's watching on TV. And he's so inspired by this performance. He goes and gets a pair of goalkeeper gloves. And his name is Gigi Buffon.
Wow.
The rest is history. And Buffon has got a son, apparently, called Thomas, after Thomas, the Cameroon goalkeeper.
Wow. And he's still playing now. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So amazing. And like you say, mate, it's the power of the World Cup, the memories it holds for everybody, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Incredible. So we're going to move on to your second shirt, which is, in my opinion, this is a stone cold classic. This is Sampdoria 1990-91 home shirt by Asics.
Yeah. So my logical, rational thought process behind this one was as follows. I was like most kids my age in the kind of early 90s. We didn't have Sky, so I couldn't watch the Premier League regularly. Obviously brought up on a diet of James Richardson on Gazzetta on a Saturday, and then, which was obviously incredible. And then you'd sort of watch bits of the game on the Sunday because it would be so unbelievably boring, because Italian football was quite dull at that point. Sorry to anyone who loves Italian football, but so I, like many people in my generation, grew up just sort of, I don't know, finding Serie A kind of otherworldly. Really, it was like sort of Hollywood to the Division 1 of the Premier Leagues, like something where I can't continue this metaphor now, but it was much better than basically Division 1. Yeah. So it had all the best players were there, pretty much, weren't they? Apart from a few that went to Barcelona, Real Madrid, or whatever. All the best players were there. It was just, I don't know, it felt very kind of exotic and just really exciting. And the other thing I think about Serie A is that there are so many big clubs that I think so many big clubs. Well, if you look at it like the Bundesliga, I kind of think you've got two big clubs and then, a few kind of less big. Yeah. And Spain, the same. But England, I always think England and Italy have got this kind of like collection of big clubs where, over the course of 20 years, 5 or 6 of those clubs could win the league. Yeah. You don't really have that anywhere else. So you had so many big teams, and that was part of the kind of allure as well of Serie A that I just loved growing up. And I just thought the teams sounded great, like Lazio and Roma and Torino. Even that's outside of the kind of big three of Juve, Inter, and AC, and then Napoli, of course. Just all these great clubs. Parma, Fiorentina, of course, and then Sampdoria. Always loved Sampdoria just because the kit was just great. The kits are always great. Sampdoria kits are always great. So I thought I was going to go for Napoli just because I love their Umbro kind of early 90s Umbro shirts. But then, I just thought that Sampdoria shirt is just so unique, so different. And also I love this. I've never been to the ground. Is it
Luigi Ferraris, I think.
That's it. Yeah. Definitely one of the. We've actually been sketching out kind of our next football tour. With a few friends and I go on tours every so often, and that's the next one. We're going to go to Genoa, and we've not been to San Siro either, so we're going to go to San Siro. So anyway, I love the stadium. Again, it reminds me of Italia 90, actually. I just remember the Republic being Romania there. Beautiful stadium. And but yeah, the shirt is just incredible. And then I thought, okay, which one am I going to go for? And it had to be 1991 because that was the year they won the Scudetto, their only Scudetto, which is an incredible story in its own right. And, a team of kind of, who was it? Lombardo, Vialli, Mancini.
Paliuca.
Yeah. It was a great side, and they were up against some, obviously, the giants of Italian football. Some of whom, I think Juve had spent ridiculous amounts of money that summer, possibly Milan as well. So, there's a kind of little side from Genoa who conquered all, and that shirt is just a thing of absolute beauty. As I said, you could pick any Sampdoria shirt, to be honest, but that one in particular, the collar is lovely. The Asics logo is really nice as well. And it's just such a brilliant season. So I had to go for that.
That's perfect, mate. I think, like you say, it's so iconic, isn't it? Nobody else has that shirt, uses those kind of colours and that kind of combination. And that, I mean, they were with Asics for years, I think, for like 10, 15 years. So it's just nice to, I think that's the first Asics shirt. So it's just kind of.
Oh, is that right? Oh, that's good.
Like I'm a similar age to you, it sounds like, and just kind of seeing that on TV for the first time and just thinking, what is this? This is something completely otherworldly, isn't it?
It is so instantly recognizable. And also the badge is brilliant as well. I love the Sampdoria badge. So, and I love Sampdoria as a word. It's just such a nice name, isn't it? Sampdoria is lovely. So, that was kind of like, I had to pick a Serie A shirt, early 90s. And that is, there's so many to choose from, but that just about edges out the rest, I think.
Sounds like it's a tough choice.
It was.
So, mate, your third and last shirt. This is slightly less glamorous, slightly less exotic, but equally as pleasing on the eye. This is an Ipswich away shirt. It was used between 89 and 92, and it's made by Umbro.
Yeah, bright orange. The whole thing was bright orange. The shorts were orange as well. Well, listen, obviously I'm an Ipswich Town fan. I think I'd be I wasn't going to pick an Ipswich shirt because I just thought it's a bit boring, but I think I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. This shirt wasn't in my top three, or an Ipswich shirt in my top three. To be honest, it's not the best looking Ipswich shirt. There's been some other nicer. The kind of 84, I think it was the 84 home shirt and the away shirt, actually the white version, which was the it was the Adidas kind of version of the French shirt from the time with the red big red bar and the 3 white stripes, and then the away was the red with blue stripes. But both of those shirts are just, to me, like perfection. But so I could have gone for that, but as before, I don't remember them playing in that shirt, so I haven't really got that kind of emotional connection. But this shirt, that orange shirt, it was the first season. Like, I'd gone to Ipswich. My dad took me to Ipswich games, from, I don't know, 4 or 5 probably, but that season, 91-92, Ipswich got promoted. They won Division 2, the old Division 2, got promoted into the inaugural Premier League. And that was the first year, it was my last year at primary school, and it was the first year I was just, went to every season ticket holders, went to every game, got kind of swept up in the season as well. It was just, we were top for pretty much all season. And it was just such a great year. Anyway, I could have picked the home shirt. The home shirt is also very nice, an Umbro shirt as well, obviously. But in April 1992, I went to my first away game with my dad and a couple of his mates. And it was only Southend away. And another pointless fact here was it was the day of the Grand National. And I didn't remember this so well because it was just running up to the May general election, and the horse that won it was called Party Politics. So it was like, will stay with me forever.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can remember the day really clearly, and we were desperate. It was right at the end of the season. We really needed to win the game. It was neck and neck. I think with us and Blackburn and Middlesbrough, I think it was. Blackburn had loads of money at the time as well, so we were like, yeah. And we were drawing. We went 1-0 up. Southend, we missed the penalty. John Walk, the legendary John Walk, missed the penalty. I think he hit the bar.
He was still going at that time. Wow.
Oh yeah, he played for another 4 years after that, I think.
Wow.
Southend equalised. I think Brett Angel might have equalised actually. And in the last minute, Neil Thompson, who's now I think caretaker manager at Sheffield Wednesday, he certainly was a couple of weeks ago. Neil Thompson, left back. I remember it so well. He cuts in from the left onto. He's so left-footed, the most left-footed player you'll ever see. And he cuts in on his right foot, and we're right behind this, and he curls the ball into the far corner. We win the game 2-1. It's just chaos, absolute chaos. And at the end of the game, all the Ipswich fans and Southend fans ran on the pitch. Southend fans were, I think they were like campaigning against their owner, Vic Jobson, I think his name was, who they thought was a proper bastard. And Ipswich fans are like joyous because we're getting promoted pretty much. And it's just one of those lovely moments where football fans kind of come together and there's this like harmony, and Ipswich fans were singing Jobson out and fans were swapping scarves. And also it was just like the perfect away day. It's the first away game I ever went to. Anyway, the end of that season, incredibly, the club used to sell off the player shirts for £7. It was £7. Wow. So me and my mate got taken. I remember going after school, went to the ground, and the only ones that were left were Neil Thompson's, and like I can't remember what the other one was. It was like a sub shirt. Anyway, so I got Neil Thompson's shirt.
Right.
Sadly, I don't think it was the shirt he wore to score that goal, because I've since looked back and he had short sleeves on that day, and this was a long sleeve shirt. So whether it was from an earlier part of the season or whatever, it was a warm day anyway, so perhaps he'd chosen to wear shirt sleeves, but whatever. I own the shirt, still got the shirt. And I can remember the next day taking it to school, and my head teacher, who was a big football fan as well, called me up to the front of assembly, and I had to put this thing on in front of everyone, and it was like wearing a dress. Honestly, it was like down to my shins. And I got it out.
Put it on in front of everyone in assembly.
I don't know, just like, look at this. He was like a big football. He was impressed with it, I think, and he just wanted to show how bloody massive this thing was. But anyway, I put it on the other day, and it's snug. It's really snug now. I just thought, I know I was 11 then, but oh man, seriously. So so that's why I've gone for that shirt. And it just, whenever I look at it, it just reminds me of that day, and a really special season. And I've still got it, and I still love it. And there we are. I had to go for that. Because we were talking at the start of this about what football shirts mean to me. Well, that's like the perfect example of what a football shirt means to me, and it's wrapped up in so many kind of memories. My dad died 10 years ago, so it makes me think of him and how we would go to football together. My parents divorced this sounds like some kind of sob story now, but my parents divorced when I was quite young. My dad would come and pick me up on a Saturday, and we'd go to the game together. So it was all of it's wrapped up in the kind of relationship with my dad, and those kind of really happy memories of going to football and just loving football. So it was an obvious choice.
Lovely stuff, mate. Well, thanks so much for sharing. They're three really great choices. Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome. Well, I hope it was difficult. This is kind of giving me some sleepless nights. I'm not even joking. Like, can I go for that? Should I really say Cameroon? Is that a bit pretentious? But it's a tough one. I need to get better at this. But I've enjoyed it. Enjoyed talking about it. And
we'll keep an eye on Cult Kits. Then there's going to be some developments in the next few weeks, hopefully.
Oh yeah, hopefully, yeah. Fingers crossed. It'll be hopefully it'll be quite exciting. And I should say to anyone listening who is a Cult Kits customer, or anyone who's visited the website, just genuinely thank you for your support. It makes, like, I know it sounds cliche, but it's just so lovely for us to kind of have sort of started this project just as a kind of something to do in our spare time, a kind of passion project, and it's turned into something bigger. And that's just because we've had support from people who've sort of bought into what we're trying to do. So genuinely grateful.
So there you have it. Massive thanks to Josh for sharing his football kit memories with me. You can follow me, my own collection, on Instagram, or get in touch via Twitter or email. Don't forget to follow Josh and Cult Kits too. And the beat was produced by Evil Ed. Other than that, I guess that's it. Until next time, I'll see you later. Is Roger Miller's Cameroon home from Italia 90? a winning Calcio Classic for the Blucherati.